Hi, everybody. It's good to be chatting with you. We are 12 days away, under 2 weeks. I still have a week of school left, so that's 5 of my days right there. But getting excited to finish out the year, to get my bag together. You should be getting excited too. And one of the things that you should be getting excited about is your group discussion. So I know there's not a lot in the syllabus, and I know there's not a lot in the to-do. So I wanted to take just a couple minutes to kind of go through some tips, some pointers, some expectations for your group collaboration or your group discussion in the field. Now, first and foremost, these are about 60 minutes. They should last about an hour, give or take 10 or 15 minutes. So between 45 minutes and maybe like an hour and 15 minutes if we're really having a good discussion. But an hour is great. That's like the perfect amount of time. Now, what you have to realize is that you guys have a lot of your content. You spent time reading the course reader, especially focused on your section. Hopefully you read all of it, but especially focused on your section. You've spent some time writing a synthesis paper that has to do with your section. You've got the content. What we want to focus on with your group discussion is some of your pedagogy. Now, I know for some of you, pedagogy is going to be a really scary word. Maybe you're not a teacher, right? So pedagogy means how you are approaching presenting your information, how you are approaching teaching your information. So one of the things you want to think about as we go into the group discussion, and I'll give you some more pointers here in a second, is really focus on that pedagogy. Think about when you were in school, if you're not a teacher now, think about how your teacher kind of laid out their lessons. What did they do to keep you engaged? What did the bad teachers do that didn't keep you engaged? The other thing that I definitely want to reiterate is that this is a discussion. It is not a lecture. You are 100%, your group is 100% a facilitator and not a lecturer. So you are planning ways to engage people rather than planning ways to talk to people. Okay, so let's kind of clear that up now. Um, for that, sorry, I'm looking at my notes here. In order to be a good facilitator, I would say that you have to come to the table with a couple things. So you need to come with objectives for sure. What is it that you are hoping that people are going to get out of your group discussion? Now, some of these topics are huge. You're not going to cover them in an hour. So really think about what are the key points that you want them to walk away with that your group chose to focus on. It's okay to be a little bit focused on these so that you can have objectives and you can determine whether people met the objectives. The other thing that you want to think about are your resources. What resources are you going to need? What resources are in the course reader that might be helpful to people? We will give you a heads up when we're in the field, at least a day or two before, kind of when your group discussion is going to be. We will meet with you beforehand in the field, but you want to come with a really solid idea of what your group discussion is going to look like. More than a solid idea, more like an agenda. And you also want to come with the resources that you're going to need. There are a lot of things at both the C station and also at the ranch, but there are some things you're not going to find. If you need post-it notes, if you need index cards, if you need popsicle sticks for some reason, you're going to have to bring those things. So you're going to want to make sure you have a conversation about the materials you need with your group before you guys start leaving for the field. The other thing, misconception. In the syllabus, it talks a lot about your synthesis paper. And the reality is your synthesis papers can be part of this discussion, but they don't have to. This doesn't have to be a way for you to tie everything in together. I have seen groups do it by focusing on their synthesis paper topics. I've seen groups do really well by trying to kind of like weave their synthesis topics together. I've also seen groups that say, you know, my synthesis paper doesn't really fit into what I think we probably want to talk about. That's fine. So I'll mention it, but we're not going to spend a lot of time on it. Any of those things are fine. But what this is not like a book review of what you wrote your synthesis paper about. So just keep that in mind as well. Definitely think about, let's go back to pedagogy. What I would recommend, so we've talked about objectives. I would also recommend thinking about your audience. You guys know enough about each other now to kind of figure out how many educators do we have? How many informal educators do we have? How many people from the zoo and aquarium world do we have? And what are we going to do in our discussion to accommodate those different professions? So when you're kind of writing out your plan for your discussion, think about, you know, well, I might want to have the middle school teachers do this, and I might want to have the high school teachers do this. And I might want to have the, you know, kind of informal educators do this, and then, you know, what can I do with everyone else? How does everyone fit into your discussion? So really know your audience. Also, really include activities. You know, think about who is going to be doing which part, but also think about how the parts go together. You know, if somebody gets up, if the first person gets up, they introduce everyone, and then they start lecturing, that might be fine as an introduction. Then the second person gets up for your next topic, and then they start just talking, you're not going to hold our attention for an hour. So really think about not just the questions and resources, but what does this look like when you map it out, and is it going to be engaging? Are people going to want to have a discussion? You also might want to think about what your discussion looks like. Whole group discussions sometimes work. They're not going to work for an hour. Think about how you might split up small groups. Think about how you might incorporate some activities. I've seen some really successful discussions in the field that use activities to prove a point. So think about some of those things that might fit into your discussion. This doesn't have to be, it doesn't have to be boring. It should be a little bit exciting. People should be excited to engage in the discussion that you're creating. I think we talked about most of my tips, so I'll just run through them again for you. So 1, make sure you have objectives. 2, make sure you think about your audience. Think about where it makes sense to split people up. Think about where it makes sense to have whole groups. 3, include activities. Make sure people are engaged. Make sure you're not just doing one thing for an hour. Break up into small groups. Come back in as a whole group. Really employ that idea of pedagogy. 4, know your materials. Know what you need. Now that you have a better idea, you might need to go back and revise that materials list. It's okay. Just make sure you kind of split up who's bringing what. Little things that are always helpful. Index cards are usually helpful. Post-it notes I've seen be really helpful. Those are the 2 like go-tos. Maybe a roll of Scotch tape. It's just not something you think about, but it's also not something we necessarily are going to have on hand. So little things like that would be really helpful to bring with you. Next, I would say map out who's doing what. So really, you should have an agenda. First, we're going to do this, and so is going to handle it. Then we're going to do this, and this person is going to take the lead. Then we're going to do this, and this person is going to take the lead. It's a good idea to have a really good idea of who's doing what, because it's going to tell you whether it's evenly split or not. The other thing we don't like to see in group discussions is 1 or 2 people take over, and then 3, 4, or 5 people are standing around not doing a whole lot. So make sure you're splitting the work evenly and you're giving everybody a chance to present. You are being graded. I mean, we don't talk much about grades and we don't want you to focus much on your grades, but it is a grade and we want to make sure everybody has an opportunity to get the grade that they deserve. And then lastly, I would say really try and create that flow and engagement. So what's going to happen first? What's going to happen next? How do they connect? How can we get people connecting to their world experiences through your discussion, connecting to the course reader through your discussion? I've also seen groups give homework. If you want people to come having read a certain article or reread a certain article, I think it's perfectly fine to say like, hey, our discussion's tomorrow, tonight before you go to bed, make sure you look at pages blank to blank. Okay, so really think about how you want to structure this so that you're in charge. You've got a voice here. We're giving you voice. We're giving you time to kind of take the reins, and make sure you really take advantage of that. So please let us know if you have any questions. I have led 3 group discussions on 3 different topics, and they're actually one of my favorite things to do. I mean, I know I'm a teacher, but they actually end up, you get to know people, you can have some fun with it, you get to engage people in a different way, and you get the reins for a little bit. You get to take control. So if you have any questions or you want to check in with me, feel free. I will be going through your group discussion Google Docs as we kind of work on the collaborating bit and providing feedback. If you have any questions, let me know. Sorry for the long video. It's late here. Hope you have a good night. I will see you in 12 days. 12 days. It's very exciting. See you in 12 days. Have a good one.